Hey, what's going on, YouTubers? I want to welcome you to Suburbia's Dirty Little Secrets. Today we have with us Melissa and Jenna, both WASP survivors from the troubled teen industry. Both attended Spring Creek Lodge in Thompson Falls, Montana. Today we're going to actually be talking a little bit with Melissa today to kind of get what her story is all about. But before I do that, I actually want to kick it over to Jenna.
Hi, everybody. I just want to let you know what I'm hoping this channel will be. I'd like it to be a platform where we can start a discussion, where people can come and ask questions, and the people that were there can answer them and tell you firsthand where there's a problem in this industry and why it needs to change for the future. So we have a petition that will link up in the bottom of this, and make sure that you like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please comment in the comments, and we'll make sure that we can create future content to answer some of those questions for you.
Perfect. Well, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Mark Rancy. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks for Melissa for being with us. For those that don't know, I actually have a personal relationship with Jenna. We actually have a child together, so I've known Jenna since, 2003-ish? And I know you had gotten back from the program 2001-ish, so a lot of times in our life together that, I've seen symptoms of PTSD and anxiety and whatnot. So that's pretty commonplace for a lot of people that go through these types of programs. So Melissa, I don't know much about your story. So I would love to hear a little bit about you, where you came from, the program itself, and maybe kind of what you're going through. So maybe just a quick Reader's Digest version on, how were you sent to the program and why?
Sure, I came from a pretty religious part of the country, and my parents were thusly fairly religious, strict people. And I didn't follow all of the guidelines that they'd set out in front of me, mostly about going to church, right, and being with the people that they wanted me to be with. And my cousin had been at the same program I was in, so it was something that they knew about, and so there I was.
And there you were, and you were pretty much kidnapped, right?
Kidnapped would be exactly the way I would say it.
Yeah.
It was literally two people who handcuffed me and threw me in a car, took me off to Montana. When I asked where I was going, none of that information was available to me. It was pretty odd.
Well, let me ask you right before we kind of jump into some of the hardship of the program, what was going through your mind? What were you feeling at the time?
I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I was 15 years old. My parents didn't seemingly support me as it was. Like I said, these people showed up. There's no documentation about where they were taking me, and it was just kind of like, good luck, have a nice day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrifying.
Jenny, you had something to add?
For me, I was asleep in the middle of the night, and my light turned on, and there's two people standing there, and they said, you can do this the easy way, or you can do this the hard way. The hard way was with cuffs, and the easy way was just to go along. But you couldn't call for help. You were leaving no matter what. They made that clear.
And kind of back then, if we're thinking, 2000, there were really no cell phones back then, right? There was no texting. I couldn't reach out via Twitter or Facebook to let my friends know what's going on, right?
You just disappear in the middle of the night. There's no way to object. There's no way to see if it's right or if it should be happening or legal. You're just taken.
Yeah, so that's absolutely crazy. I can only imagine. But so why don't you maybe share with the audience a little bit of what happened when you got there? What was that like?
So we rolled into a very small town out in the middle of the mountains, literally 26 miles up a hill. And when we got to the end of that dirty road, there was a trailer. And the trailer was the place that you were checking in with the staff, and they would do a full inventory of all of your clothing. They would do a strip search and cavity search for you to make sure that you weren't bringing anything into the facility. And at that point, you're kind of thinking to yourself, I'm here for a bit.
Yeah.
It kind of settles in. And then you look around and you realize that you're on a facility with several hundred kids, and they were not questioning anything at all. It was almost like I had walked into the Twilight Zone. There are people walking heel-toe in line with their heads forward, and it was total Twilight Zone to me. I was like, what is going on here? Who are these people? Why are they listening to all these adults? Like, why does this all matter? You know, what is the point of all of this? It was really confusing.
It sounds when we got there super invasive. They were obviously stripping you down. But so after you kind of got strip searched and probably a new set of clothes, I'm assuming based off what I know with Jenna, you weren't allowed to bring any personal belongings, right?
Personal belongings definitely were either completely trashed, based on what I know about other students, or with me, they were actually put into, I think, some kind of shipping and sent to my parents back in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So what was night one like?
Night one for me was, I was a little jet lagged, and I remember walking into our group of people that we all lived in. They're called families. They call them families, ironically, but they're basically a group of 20 people, and we sleep together in a larger cabin with bunks, you know, double bunk beds. And at first, because I'm terrified. I have no idea who these people are. I see them following instructions from adults. What's going on here? I don't understand the full dynamics of it yet, you know. And I remember at that time, and you know, Jenna and I have talked about this before, how we were put on different challenges throughout the course of the program. It happened to be that my group of people, the family, were on a challenge where they would actually have to haul a log all over the facility and not let it touch the ground ever.
For sure. So
for weeks.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not like you just do this for a day or a couple hours or whatever. It is, you have this log. Girls would have physical marks on them from carrying it and the pressure of it causing like sores and all kinds of stuff, and you had to carry it. Although I think I wasn't in your family, because we were in Serenity family together, but I think that's when
I was in Integrity family
when you did that.
Yeah.
So I didn't go through it personally, but I watched you guys through the facility. They had to eat with this log, do everything with this log together, and couldn't.
We slept in shifts
to
make sure that the log was off the ground. So anyway, that was kind of how I came into the family, and I'm just trying to understand, like, what's my ecosystem, right? How do I fit in here? I'm watching all these kids follow the rules, and at first you're just trying to understand how to survive there, or like fly under the radar.
So with Melissa here, so what I'm actually really curious about is, you know, you were kind of trying to stay under the radar. That seems to be kind of the first thing that most of these girls do, is I'm just going to fly under the radar, put my head down, and try to get out as fast as possible. How did you do, and maybe you can explain to the audience that doesn't know, kind of how does the level system work? Where were you kind of in the levels? And then what was your strategy to maybe try to get out of the program? How did that work? And kind of what were the repercussions?
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing, because I'm a little bit different from other people, and this is an unfortunate thing that happened. 3 months into my program, unfortunately, my father took his own life, and that was seen by everyone in the facility. Everybody knew it.
How did they know it? Sorry to interrupt, but how did they know?
Because they make that information known through group, and they have no problem sharing that information with other people. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I had any choice in that.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, and I definitely had behaviors where I didn't really want to function in the family. I definitely didn't care to function in the family, so I would spend time in a place called Worksheets, which was mostly, you know, a time where we would go, you know, listen to what they would call tapes. But the tapes were either, you know, inspirational speakers, or it was just books being read over and over and over again. And because like I said, I just preferred to stay by myself and just be in my own mind, I guess. That was the only way I could cope with everything that was happening, honestly. Yeah, that's essentially what happened in the first few months of my program. I just really didn't care about what was going on. I preferred not to be around other people where they were just constantly digging at me for information or critiquing my thoughts in every single move and feeling. And I struggled for the first probably year of my program because I frankly did not care. My mother was not a very nice person to me anyway, never wrote me, and they would not let me go see my father. Everybody in my community got to go to my father's funeral, and Melissa had to stay in a boarding school, right, in Montana, where everybody knows about what happened, and, I'm not really able to have my own mind of it. So anyway, that's how I survived.
For sure. So I know, kind of based off my talking with Jenna, there's 6 levels, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What level did you kind of spend that first year?
That first year, so there's 6 levels in the program, and they're going to be based on the first 3 on just how many points you accrue, and you can accrue points through a number of different acts, whether it be writing these things called reflections every single day on like your quote unquote daily progress, or if you get demerits. So demerits are things that you do that are against the rules, and so those can hack away at your points. For an example, if you swear, those are demerits off. If you happen to look out of line, that's demerits off. If you certainly talk to a boy, you are getting knocked to the very bottom again. So it's not very hard, as you can tell, to be knocked down anyway. And so, as it were, I just didn't care. So I stayed between level 3, 1 to 3.
1 to 3, the lower level.
And because I didn't have any incentive to leave either, because my father was gone. My mother was not a nice person as much, and I frankly don't.
Was there no motivation going through your head?
No motivation
to even get out of the program?
Could you get through the seminars though? Because I couldn't get past level 3 because I couldn't graduate.
Well, and actually, before we get into that, maybe you can explain a little bit of what do you mean by seminar.
So we did seminars that were based on teachings that I thought was therapy at the time, but I've later come to realize and learn that it was based on Life Spring and some other crazy theories. However, these seminars were meant to break us. They would put you in fight and flight and wear you down, and then the purpose of them were to break your will, and then you would have this life-changing thing where your true potential was revealed. And they were really weird, really, really weird. You weren't allowed to talk about them at all, and they were really intense, like
emotional. And they would literally take the thing about you that was like your worst insecurity.
Yeah,
that was the worst mental anguish you've ever been in your entire life, and exploit it for all to see.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So were you anything like Jenna, where the seminars was kind of the most difficult part of the program for you, or was there even more difficult aspects of it? Maybe you want to explain to the audience.
So, excuse me, because this actually does bring up, this is a PTSD moment. If I'm being honest with you, this brings me right back to those moments where, dealing with what was going on, which was my reality, my forced reality in the program, and rather being in a white room where I spent a good 6 months of my program, by the way. They called this little facility, the other side of our facility, isolation, okay? And so what that was is basically a white cabin with a carpeted box that you would sleep on, and you would be there on a 24-hour hold. And most students would go into that area because they would be maybe exercising some kind of physical behavior that was, against somebody, right? Physically, they're getting into fights.
Or even self-harming behaviors. So if people were to, there were several girls that I saw that would drink cleaner, try to commit suicide,
right.
And instead of them getting therapy or being around people or talking about what was going on, they would be put in isolation for days to months at a time.
Even months. I mean, and there's obviously some psychological science behind that, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but there's some things that maybe you guys are still dealing with post that, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to add? And was that the same thing as The Hobbit, or is The Hobbit something different?
It's synonymous with The Hobbit, and a lot of other folks that were in the WASP programs know what The Hobbit is. The Hobbit, again, is just, it's a white room. You're in there with one staff. You're eating 3 meals a day that consist of basically a rice and bean burrito and a banana with no peel. And you're not trusted there. You're somebody that's using a blooper for a bathroom. You're not able to communicate with the outside world whatsoever, like I said, for at least 24 hours. And sometimes I'd be in there for weeks, and refuse to leave. So that's what that was like.
And what was kind of going through your head, especially if you were in there for weeks? I mean, what was your kind of inner voice telling you after a couple days, a week, etc.?
My inner voice was telling me that I'm better off without the people in the outside.
Yeah. So you start getting kind of used to it. Like, I don't want to even be out there anymore.
Yeah. I'm actually happy with who I am, and I felt that they were forcing me to be somebody that I was not.
Sure.
And I certainly didn't trust them. I've never actually thought about that out loud.
Yeah.
I think, so I was in Melissa's family during that time, and what I remember is when she would come back to the family, she would just be very isolated. Like, what I thought somebody going through depression would be looking like. She didn't want to be involved in any of the family activities, and me and her were friends, and I remember going and like, Melissa, come on, like, just, stick with us, blah, blah. And she was just like, no, I need to get out of here. Like, very much telling the world she needed some kind of intervention different from what she was getting. And I don't think she got it.
So you were there from kind of what time to what time?
Yep, I was there from August 2000 to August 2002, so 2 full years.
Okay, gosh, gotcha. And Jenna, you were there for 18 months or so?
18 months.
Yeah, probably a long time regardless. So maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about the end. What turned it around, for you? How did you kind of climb the levels a little bit? What changed? And eventually, how did you get out?
So interestingly about the change, so the program head, I had a rapport with him, and I was a little difficult for sure, but he saw a lot of potential in me, and I think at one point he actually just kind of put me there. It was like, what, Melissa can be here. And so, like I said, lower levels are level 3. He put me basically in a position where I could get up on level 4 very easily. He might have even, I think I did actually vote up by my peers to be on level 4, but that's how things kind of came along. Actually, it was given to me.
Jeez, okay. And then how long were you kind of in the upper levels? And did you ever drop back down?
I was on the upper levels for probably a full year, maybe a little less than a year. Did I drop into the lower levels? I did not. I did make a drop, I think, from level 5 for a short time.
Gotcha. And then kind of towards the end of the 2 years, what happened and how did you end up coming back home?
So what happens when you're on the upper levels is you're seen as a little bit more trusted. They call levels 4 through 6 junior staff. And so the junior staff were basically what it's called, junior staff. So those people were allowed more roaming privileges on the facility, where they could roam on the facility without supervision, for an example. I actually was what they call a trainer. So it's like once they put me on level 4 and I was on a good track, I just kept running. But I actually got a trainer position, so I was actually the head of the junior staff for most of my upper level program, actually. And so when that happened, things were good. So it was like when things were going well for me, I did well. But when things were against me, things were not great. So it's just odd how that happened in my program that way.
How did your mindset change? Because you kind of explained to the audience out there that, you didn't care in the lower levels. Mm-hmm. You constantly got in trouble probably for not caring. But when you got to the upper levels, it seemed like something maybe changed in your mindset. So maybe if you can explain a little bit about what were you thinking? What was your kind of end game?
Well, I went from one aspect where I was literally like, I'm never going to leave here. I don't want to go home. I told you about my mom. My father was gone. My life was completely changed when I went back to Wisconsin as it was. So I didn't really care to go home. And then when I got to the upper levels, I was like, maybe I won't be here until I'm 18. I really need to figure out a plan, because when I get home, I'm going to have to survive for long enough anyway. So yeah, that's kind of my mentality. I had to look good enough at that point.
For sure. Yeah. No, talking to Jenna, there's always talks of brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there maybe something you'd want to add on that? Any thoughts on brainwashing tactics or how you kind of feel about that overall?
Do you want me to explain
I think yeah, brainwashing is such an integral part of the program anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, I got sucked down that road for sure.
I think, like, brainwashing is kind of a crazy term, and when you hear it, it's hard for people to relate and wrap their mind around that. So,
well, you think you're like staring at a screen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
For me, it was when people, that point, because people all came in fighting. Nobody wanted to be there. Even like a year, usually on the lower levels, people are still resisting. They're like, this place is weird. Everybody, wake up. Like,
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing anything? But then there gets to a certain point where they have broken you so much where you are just like, make it stop. Make it stop, make it stop, make it stop.
I will do anything.
I don't care.
I will do anything. I literally will do anything.
And that's when you move up to the upper levels.
Sure.
And so it's like weird because it's not brainwashed. Like, yes, we're still our own people. We still made those choices. However, it wasn't that we were thinking logically or rationally or because that's what we even thought. We were just we became robotic. Everything about it was about discipline and about being very legalistic in our actions and even how we presented ourselves to the world. You were constantly thinking about, they give you this idea of perfection, and if you reach perfection, then all the consequences will stop.
Then you will be happy.
Yeah.
That other people around you will be happy. And also, for me, looking at the brainwashing side of it, you want it to stop, but moreover, you just want. I think moreover, the people in the program don't want you to be an individual. They don't want you to rock the boat. They don't want you to ask the authority about what is going on. And so, if you can put yourself there for 2 years, maybe understand why repetitive things that were being told to us over and over again, the physicalness of what we were doing every single day, twice a day, with workouts, right? Having to listen to a leader all the time. There were designated leaders for every single situation we'd ever be in.
Yeah, and so I guess my question is, it seems like most of the girls that come in, they go through the lower levels, right? And then they don't want to be there. They rebel, they resist, etc. There seems to be a breaking point kind of internally before you kind of flip that switch, make the decision, brainwash or not, that you start kind of pushing a little harder to get to the upper levels. If you can recall, what was that for you?
Why did I want to get to the upper levels?
Yeah, what was that switch that was flipped, that breaking point?
The breaking point was that I finally realized, and this is just like the materialistic side of it too, right? I liked shaving my legs, right? You give a person dignity. Hold on a second.
It's true. Yeah.
I hate saying it, but I just wanted my dignity back. I wanted to be respected again. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to have my own space, and I just wanted my own place. And that's all I was just aching for. And I just needed some space, man.
Yeah, for sure. Jenna, what was your breaking point?
Well, my parents. So my family mom put me on challenges. I was put on Black Cloud for, I think, 2 weeks. I made it before I was like, I can't do this. Where basically you are invisible to the rest of the family and everyone around you. So I could be sitting there, Melissa was in my family, and I could be sitting there like, yo, Melissa! And she would have to look straight ahead and pretend like I didn't exist. It was just, people weren't allowed to look at you. You weren't allowed to talk. I mean, just it really messes with your head where you are just like, is this real?
So dehumanizing. You don't hear your own voice. How can you even go through life without hearing your own voice? You're not even allowed to talk.
And then they threatened to send me to High Impact. My parents said no. So then they said Jamaica. that threat, my parents told me that they said no, but that threat was still hung over me the whole time. So I always had this threat that I was going to get sent to a foreign country, which was much more physically abusive in foreign countries. And so I had that threat hanging over me. Nobody was even acknowledging that I existed. And so I was just like, whatever you want me to do, I don't care. I will do it.
You just kind of gave up.
I gave up.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, maybe the last couple questions I have for you. You know, it sounds like this was obviously very traumatic. We already talked a little bit about PTSD. Maybe you can share with the audience when and how did you come home, and what have you been kind of battling with since then?
So I did what I was supposed to do, and I voted up on level 6. I went to my second PC seminar with my mom, and at that point I had the stamp of approval on my head, and so I got sent home with something called a home contract. And the home contract is worked on with yourself and what they call a family rep. And that is a plan, an action plan that they put together for you where these behaviors are not allowed. These behaviors are only allowed.
Wait, but was yours a point and level system? Because mine was a point and level system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally they take the same program that you just came from, that they just brainwashed you how to live, and they take that same model and move it into your house. So it's the same kind of paranoia the whole time
with your
you're there.
Parents
But
kind
with
of
your parents,
supervising
yes.
that. Yeah.
The odd thing is that, you know, your parents tell you that they care about the program, but once they have, you know, the home contract and they actually have to put the effort in, it's almost like the whole thing goes out the door when you're home.
Yeah.
Because it actually means that they have to do some work there.
Yeah, they're not supervising. They're not grading you or anything like that, right? They're not disciplining you in a way if you do break the contract.
And so for me, it was like constant anxiety because I had just come from this place where they followed the rules. And now I felt like I was doing something wrong when my mom wouldn't hold me accountable. Like, I don't know if you like, my mom would be like, wouldn't count up my points or wouldn't take away my level or whatever the home contract was. And I would get freaked out like, she's going to think I'm manipulating and I'm going to get sent back to the program because I'm not dropping myself because I talked on the phone for 10 minutes
Lack
longer.
integrity.
Yeah, it so messes with you. You're just constantly have this fear about being sent back there.
That's definitely what I lived with after immediately. It was the fear of being sent back. I had a few more months until I was 18. I knew how that could go. I've seen it before with other program people having to come back. So I was pretty much on my best behavior. I finished up high school in a total of 2.5 years. It turned out I was okay at school, thank God. And that was that, you know. But as time went on, yeah, I absolutely suffered from. I think the oddest thing that actually came out of this, from a psychological aspect, is actually my claustrophobia. I have horrible claustrophobia. It's bad. I didn't actually fly in airplanes for about 7 years.
Yeah.
Period. Lights sometimes, because the lighting in there was so bad, and they were always on. Even if at night the lights are always on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lights to this day freak me out.
Mm-hmm.
If they're on me a lot, it just hurts my eyes. It hurts my eyes. And the anxiety, dealing with a number of things that maybe I don't want to talk about at this time. The anxiety was really bad. I couldn't even manage it for most of my adult life until a few years ago. The PTSD is not something that I even came to terms with until about a year ago.
And similar with you as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. So what are you looking forward to, maybe kind of going forward? What are you trying to get out of this, and what are next steps for you?
Well, you know what? Jenna and I never left each other. And you know what? There are other people in the program that I've connected with since. And now, again, we're in this position where we're opening a dialogue. We've aligned with a couple other groups that are against institutional abuse. And we have to know that there are other programs out there still in existence, completely legal. And the program that we were in actually was shut down. And maybe Jenna wants to say something there, but...
Yeah, what I found when I started investigating this, I started investigating it because I wanted to understand the mind control part of it, because it sounded so crazy to me. And following that platform, there has been so many open programs. The government comes, shuts them down, and then a spin-off opens with the same staff, same level system, same everything, but under a new name.
And I'm assuming there'll be a whole nother video where Jenna will break down all of the research and investigative work that she's done.
I will.
So, yeah, so stay tuned. Well, I definitely appreciate you sharing everything kind of going through. I know it can be a traumatic experience. Is there anything that you maybe want to add or share with the YouTubers out there?
I just want to say that, now that I look around and realize there are many of us now, many thousands of us, and there are a lot of people that are not in a position to talk anymore. They've lost their lives, people that have lost their lives to suicide, drug and alcohol abuse. And so those are the people that I'm connected with, because at the end of the day, I mean, we all are with each other, and just having the community and people around us to support us. If they didn't before, it's okay. We have to be okay with that. But going forward,
Yeah, definitely.
it's good to have a community of support.
Yeah, and I know Jenna's been working very hard on kind of bringing awareness to the community. So you can definitely look her up and Melissa up on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
Jenna, is there anything that you want to add?
Yes, make sure that we're going to link up the petition. Please sign the petition. Trying to change some of the laws to stop this. For we are still affected by this 19 years later. There are kids currently in these programs that need help and need to get out and need this to stop. So please sign the petition and leave your comments there. And any questions that you have that you'd like us to expand on, we would love to address those. So please drop those in as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Melissa. I'm Mark. Have a great day. See you guys.